Hi, welcome back. In this video, I want to show you how to draw this portrait of Matt Smith's character from House of the Dragon. This one is simple and easier than the Witcher drawing, so make sure you give this a try and let's get started. These are the art supplies I'm going to use for this drawing, and you can pause the video right here to note them down. I draw the outlines using grid method, and you can find all the references including this outline grid reference on my Patreon profile. Link is in the description. I'm using this A3 size paper from my ordinary drawing pad, and the drawing position area is 11 x 14 inches. So starting with the background, and first of all I want to take this 8B powder from my homemade graphite powder kit and use it with a bigger dry brush like this to shade the background. If you don't have a graphite powder kit, you can make one at home by watching this video from the cards. Make sure you darken the outline with an 8B pencil to get a proper boundary line for the background shading. You can use a medium sized brush like this to shade near the boundary line. Take your time and shade it thoroughly to make it as dark as you want, and then use a tissue paper to even out the shade so it would look more plain. If you want to make a gradient like I did here, you can use your 8B pencil and back and forth stroke technique to shade near the outline of the portrait and blend it using a dry brush later on. And by the way, the real-time version of this tutorial is available on my Patreon profile. So if you want to see all these details up close and in real time, you can visit my Patreon profile. Link is in the description. Okay, now moving on to the hair, and first of all I'm going to use this nail art drawing tool as an indenting stylus to indent these white hair. Make sure you have some black directional lines for hair to help you with the indentation lines. If you don't know anything about the indentation technique or tools, you can watch this video from the cards before starting this portion. Okay, now use your 3B pencil and add these dark faded lines in between the indentation lines, especially in the shadowed portions, and lightly blend this layer using a dry brush later on. Now use your 5B pencil and further darken these lines which are in shadowed portions. Okay, now use your mono zero eraser with a sharp tip and erase the shades from the indentation lines to make them look more prominent and sharp. You can also add some individual random hair in different directions to give the overall hair a more realistic look. Make sure to keep the tip of your mono zero eraser sharp at all times, or else you will get thicker hair instead of sharp ones. You can also use your kneaded eraser in between to lighten some of these shades if they get darker than the reference image. Now moving on to the forehead, and first of all I'm going to fill it with a base layer using a B pencil and blend it using a dry brush. Now use your 3B pencil and shade the wrinkles and shadowed portions. Keep the angle between the pencil and paper minimum to get a smooth looking shade, just like this, and then use a dry brush to blend this layer. You can use a mini blending stump or mini dry brush to blend the wrinkles. You can use your sharp tip mono zero eraser again for these extra white hair in the corners, and then use your kneaded eraser to lighten this middle portions of the forehead where required. And then use your mono zero eraser for these sharp white highlights and for the skin texture. You can use this circular scribbling motion with your mono zero eraser to add the skin texture like this. Now moving on to the eyes, which are pretty simple, so I'm gonna shade them along the cheek portion. So first of all I'm gonna fill it with the base layer after darkening the outline and blend it thoroughly using a dry brush. And then use your 3B pencil to fill these shadowed portions with darker shade like this. Again, keep the angle between the pencil and paper minimum to get a smooth looking shade, and blend it using a dry brush afterwards. Then use your 5B pencil to further darken these portions like eyelid and make a proper outline for the iris. Then use your 9B pencil afterwards to give the eyelid and iris a final darker look. You can also blend them lightly using a mini dry brush if they look rough and textured. Okay, now use your sharp tip mono zero eraser and add these small white hair for the eyebrows. You can also use the B pencil in between for the black ones. And again, use your mono zero eraser to add these highlights on the eyelid and iris, and add skin texture on the cheeks. You can use the scribbling motion technique for the skin texture. Now moving on to the right eye and cheek portion, and I'm gonna repeat the exact same shading process as I did for the left one. The only difference is these sharp white highlights which I added using a sharp tip electric eraser, just like this. You can also use your jelly roll pen for this purpose. Now moving on to the nose portion, and the shading process here is really simple than any other nose you have drawn till now. Just fill it with the base layer first and then use a 3B pencil to fill the left side with a darker shade and fill the right side with a lighter one and blend it later on using a dry brush. Then use your kneaded eraser and add these highlights in the middle portion. You can also use the tip of your folded tissue paper or a blending stump to smudge the barrier between the highlights and dark shades. And also use your mono zero eraser along with a B pencil to add the required skin texture and highlights. Moving on to the lips and chin, and again both of these portions are really simple. Just fill the whole area with a base layer first and then use your 3B pencil to darken the lips and shadowed portions around them. Keep in mind the upper lip and the shadow below the lower lip are darker than the other portions, so shade them accordingly. And again blend the second layer with dry brush later on. Now use your 5P pencil and further darken these extra dark and shadowed portions in the lips and also on the left side of the chin. Now for the highlights on the lower lip, I'm gonna use this sharp tip mono zero eraser and add these thin white lines along the lip line. And then use your electric eraser or jelly roll pen for these extra sharp white dots and highlights on the right side of the lip. For these soft white highlights above the lips, I'm gonna make a sharp tip like this with my kneaded eraser and dab it lightly on the surface to pick up the extra graphite, just like this. I'm gonna repeat the same highlighting process for chin and the remaining portion as well. You can also use your mono zero eraser in between for the skin texture. For the neck portion, you just have to fill it with the base layer first and then use the 3B shade for the corner portions. And also add this texture or wrinkles in between. And then use your mono zero eraser or sharp tip kneaded eraser for the highlights. Now moving on to the hair, and as you can see in the reference, the side hair are not in focus, so I'm gonna fill them with a base layer first and then use a 3B pencil and add these faded lines and strokes, starting from the shadowed portions and ending in the lighter ones. I'm also going to fill the shoulder portion with the plain black 8B shade. Now use your sharp tip mono zero eraser and make a proper shape for the ear, and also add these random individual hair near the earlobe. Now I'm gonna fill the remaining portion of the hair with these sharp white lines using the same sharp tip mono zero eraser. Don't fill the shadowed portions with sharp white lines. You can add some individual hair in the shadowed portions, but don't fill them completely. You can use your electric eraser or jelly roll pen for these individual white hairs on the shoulder. You can also use your mono zero eraser along with an electric eraser or jelly roll pen to highlight the clothing on the shoulder, just like this. Now for the neck and chest portion, I'm gonna fill it with the plain black 8B shade first and then use your mono zero eraser along with an electric eraser to add these white details and texture for the clothing, and use a mini dry brush to blend the texture where required. I'm gonna repeat the same shading and highlighting process for the right hair, and for the final touches I'm gonna add some random small white hair on the edges to give them a more realistic appearance. And with this last step we are done with this hyper realistic Matt Smith portrait. It takes so much time and efforts to create these tutorials, so please leave a like if you enjoyed this one. It helps me a lot as an artist. So if you want to get the real-time tutorial of this drawing, you can visit my Patreon profile. And if you want to learn the basics of drawing first, you can join my course on Udemy. All the links are in the description down below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.